kitties, time for another review. This time we've got Batwoman from DC, and this is a kind of a larger box that she comes in. I'm guessing her cape takes up a little bit of room, but there's her illustration there, and good grief, that's quite a hip, and I would imagine, butt as well, but I don't know, it's hard to tell from the illustration because it's 2D, but I'm going to come back to that hip later, but looks pretty good. That's Shunya, that's what he does. Yamashita-sama, he's great. So there's the back of the box. Here is the description. There. Zatanna is coming up. I don't really know a whole lot about Zatanna, honestly, but the statue's good enough looking that I'll be picking her up too. But anyway, here's the box. Here's the box here. Kind of looks funny having her extra head in there. I'm not really suggesting it should go anywhere else. I just think it looks funny floating there like that. But let's go ahead and open her up and see what's what. Alright, and here she is. So I like this figure a lot more in person than I did before I seen her. All the shots and stuff I've seen online of her, I don't know, I wasn't really impressed all that much, to be honest. It looked good. I knew I wanted to get it, but I think once you see her in person, I think it takes on a little bit of a different feel. It did for me. And I think they really came close to nailing the illustration. There's a couple of little discrepancies, probably just the regular stuff, which is her. Well, they made her boobs bigger than Shunya did, so they sculpted them larger. This has been kind of a pretty regular thing for a little while now, where they just end up being sculpted a little larger. I don't know, or maybe it's just me, maybe it's my eyes messing with me, or maybe it's my perspective, but I'm pretty sure that these here are bigger than those there. The placement of the logo, the bat symbol on her chest, looks like it covers more of her chest than it does here, but that's all really ticky-tack stuff, and I think for the most part they pretty much nailed the pose. So another thing that didn't really get impressed upon me in the shots that I've seen of her online is the shape of her butt. Now, there's not a lot going on with this figure. She's pretty plain. Most of it is black, and the rest is red, and that's it. There's nothing else really going on. So the sculpt and the pose are really the things that are going to have to stand out for this figure, and her figure kind of becomes the center of focus. So I'm glad to see that this is intact. I don't know. I'm not sure what it was that I was seeing in the shots online or not seeing, but in person, pretty impressive. I dig it. And all in all, I think it's a pretty impressive figure. So about the paint. Let's see. Let's start at the bottom. The base is pretty straightforward. It's a metallic, kind of burgundy, very rich red. It has the embossed Batwoman logo on the bottom there. You can see it looks pretty good. It doesn't. It's not one of these storage bases that we've been seeing lately for characters with extra heads or parts or whatnot. Actually, this is the first Bishoujo to have an extra head. The other ones have extra faceplates, but this one has a whole, or maybe a different arm or different hands, things like that. This is the first full-on head replacement, and I don't think they could have done a storage base with this one, because when this head comes off, it's pretty big, and the storage base you would need for that would be kind of ridiculous looking. I'm sure they realized that. So here's the other head. We'll get into this one in a second, but they didn't. Without the storage in the base, you just have this head kind of floating around, and they don't really give you anything with it. I know that Figma figures give you a little accessory Ziploc bag to put your things in. This one comes wrapped in plastic, like every other part of the Bishoujo does when you take it out of the box, just to protect it during shipping. But I don't think that's really going to cut it for storage, so you're going to have to come up with some kind of solution for this yourself, which isn't the end of the world, but I feel like maybe a little box or something like that to put it in would have been nice in lieu of a storage base. But we don't get anything like that. So The boots actually do have kind of a metallic finish to them. Well, maybe not finish, but the paint has kind of a pearlescent look to it. And it doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't really strike me immediately looking at it that it's even there. But if you bother to look closely, you can see some pretty nice paint on there, which is nice. Like again, because the rest of it is black. Now the black, there's really nothing to it. It's just a glossy black. If you compare her to, let's say Batgirl, which I will do in a moment, Batgirl's suit is matte. Catwoman's is shiny, but it has kind of a very dark purple reflective quality to it. Has some metallic paint in that. So compared to some of the other Bishoujo, this is a very basic paint job. It's just black gloss. But it looks pretty good. It's very shiny. So we have the belt here. A decent sculpting detail on the belt. You can see that it has this kind of little design on the belt buckle itself. Looks pretty good. The paint doesn't really vary here too much. It's just that kind of somewhat pearlescent paint, but there's no shading on the belt. It seems like there is a little bit on the boots. There's darker and lighter spots in the paint, and that tends to happen in the belt as well. But there's no paint shading it in like you might assume there would be if you just are going off of the illustration. It's a little bit, I don't know, it has some dark spots in it, just shaded in, but not so in the figure, but that's okay. You see there the really sharp paint application for her logo on her chest. It comes down to a really fine point and comes out to pretty fine points. Pretty sharp, good detail. The cape in the illustration has some red underneath that's kind of exposed on the shoulder. You can see there. And that did not make it into the statue. But not a big deal, I don't think. There's plenty of red on the inside. And this is more of the same red pearlescent. Looks really good. The gloves and the inside of the cape and the logo on the chest and on the boots all look like the same red. The red on the belt seems like it's a little darker, but there are parts of it where you see where it kind of almost gets pink in the right light because of that pearlescent effect. And that's pretty good. That's another thing I didn't really appreciate from just seeing pictures of her. The hand sculpt is a tad bit off. This is another very ticky-tack kind of things, but if you really wanted to draw some differences between the illustration and the final sculpt, that'd be one of them, is that her, I don't know, like the position of her fingers, but I can't imagine that being a big enough deal to anyone to actually affect their opinion of this thing. Pretty good detail inside the hands, too. She has kind of like ribbed gloves on the inside of her palm. A little bit of sculpting detail on the outside of her gauntlet here. And another cool thing I noticed is that she's got a couple of fingers sticking out underneath her cape. I feel like that could have gone unnoticed, and if they just painted it black, no one would probably even know that those are fingers. But they got paint, so kudos for that. She is bolted to her base, by the way. She is not like the ones that have been out lately, where she just kind of slots onto the base. She's actually bolted on. And then we got the head. And the head, I guess, is really kind of the most intricate part of this statue. And I really like it. I think they did a really good job. There's one part about it I don't like, but we'll get into that in just a second. The hair is really nice. Now, they didn't do this translucent plastic like they used to, and the last few figures they've put out haven't had that. I think Freddy was the last to do it, so maybe they're getting away from it. It's hard to say, but as long as they paint them like this, then I'll have no problem with that. This looks really good. Face looks pretty good. As best I can tell, the lips and nose on both are identical. They look exactly the same, and I guess that's no surprise. They really should, but In case you were wondering, that doesn't seem like there's any difference between the nose and the lower face of the two. So the thing I kind of bugged me about this statue in the shots that I've seen, and even now in person when I'm looking at it, if I think about it enough, I see it, which is it seems like her mask is too big for her face. Uh, if you can imagine where her eyes are, it seems like the eyes on the mask are sitting higher than that, like on her eyebrows. Um, I don't know if this is one of these things where maybe it's just me, maybe other people have noticed this, maybe you didn't notice it, and now that you do, you can't unsee it. And if that's the case, I apologize. But um, when I was looking at shots of her, it really bugged me. And to be honest, it's present in the illustration as well. The way he drew her, it looks okay on the whole, but if you just imagine where the eyes are, it seems like the eyes on the mask are just a little too high. Um, but getting her in person, I got to say that really is kind of reduced when you get to look at her from different angles, maybe at a slightly higher angle. You really don't notice it. I don't tend to notice it. Like this here, it looks okay. Um, so it doesn't bother me nearly as much as I thought it might, which is great. So I'm happy about that. But if you've noticed that as well, uh, you know, if that's a deal breaker for you, I can imagine maybe somebody that might not that might be bothersome enough that they would decide not to get it. I should tell you that you should see it in person before you just dismiss it outright. A lot of detail in the cape for what it is. It's kind of an intricate way that she's holding it. It seems like, given the fingers are coming out underneath, that her hand's kind of wrapped around part of it at some point. Um, it's not just she's holding her cape. It seems like some went into how exactly she's holding this. You can see how it goes over the top of her hand. You can see a bit of her thumb there. Kind of, you see just a little piece of it there. Um, so interesting how they did that. Seems like it was a little more detailed probably than it needed to be, but I can appreciate that. All right, so she has another head, just pops off, and so you can see this thing really wouldn't have anywhere to fit if there would if there's a base. It would have to be pretty big to fit this inside of it. Um, you're talking about probably almost 3 inches, and that'd be too big. But if you decide to go with either one of these, you have a storage issue. And honestly, I like them both. Let's just go and put her unmasked head on. I think it looks good. She's definitely very pretty, which I guess is no surprise. It's what they do best, and I think she looks great. Kind of torn a little bit. I'm not sure really which one I want to go with. Probably end up going with the masked head just because it's what Shunya drew, and it's a little more iconic that way, I think. But it's a really nice face. And the hair's painted really nice, just like the other hair. This is, I guess, this version of Batwoman. And I read a couple of the New 52 Batwoman comics. She's just got a wig, and I don't know, maybe Batwoman's always had a wig. I don't know. I didn't pay much of attention to her before the New 52, but she's just got a long wig, so her hair is short like this. It's not just a contrasting stylistic choice. It's accurate to the comic. So got a little shiny deal going on there. But I think it's great. I really like the way they've painted the hair. In lieu of the translucent plastic, I actually I do prefer this. Let me take the head off just so you can see a little more of the detail easier. It's got kind of layers to it. It's painted pretty well. It's got a nice sense of motion to it. So they did a good job. I dig this hair a lot. So it's kind of a pick 'em on which head you can go with. I think they're both great. Good figure. I must say I'm impressed now that I've seen it in person. I'm glad that I decided not to pass on her. It did occur to me that maybe this is one I could live without, and I'm glad I decided to get her because she looks really good. She's also fairly big. We're going to do a size comparison here in a second, but she's pretty tall, and let's go ahead and do that. All right, here she is with half of Gotham. It occurs to me that Gotham must have like the most determined criminals in the world to have this many masked crime fighters running around and still have crime be a thing. uh, anyway, Batwoman is she stands about the height I guess you would expect her to. She fits in well with the other uh, DC girls here, the other Gotham girls. She felt a little big when I took her out of her package. I think that's because I just finished reviewing Jubilee, and she's smaller than her, a little on the shorter side. Um, but I think the highlight of this statue is the sculpt. Um, the paint is nice, but there's so little of it given the character design that it's not the showstopper here. Uh, but I think the sculpt is it's sculpted by someone that goes by MIC. Not sure if that's a person or a team of people or a company or what. Um, but they did what they do. They did Spider Woman, and they're doing Wasp. So kind of new to the Bishoujo game, but I think they're welcome because this is a great sculpt, and I think it's the most attractive part of this statue. And yeah, she looks good. I dig her a lot. The mask doesn't bother me like I thought it might, which is nice because I was a little bumped by that earlier. But it looks good. And I'm happy to have her. I'm glad that I didn't pass. I think maybe if you're not into Batwoman, you can afford to pass, but I don't think you should. Well, you know, as Bishoujo goes, it looks good. She's an excellent addition, so uh, I would recommend picking her up. And before I wrap it up here, I do want to take a second and kind of address my subscribers regarding this donations thing. I'm not going to do it, but you know, I don't have any. I don't put ads up on my videos. I don't make any money off of these at all. Like none, zero. It's not like I don't make a lot. I make none. So um, I know that when I go to watch other people's videos and I have to sit through an ad, it's annoying. I don't like it, and I don't want my subscribers to do it. And kind of getting to a point with these reviews that I started getting into it for fun, and I noticed that no one else was doing them, so um, I kind of was just doing them for shits and giggles, really. But now, as I've asked people to subscribe and to leave comments and watch my videos and all that, I feel like I kind of have a little bit of an obligation to them. I want to make sure that I follow through, and if someone subscribes and I've asked them to and they do it, that the least I can do is do what they expect. I mean, that would be to do these reviews. So anyway, I had enough people leave me comments and tell me things like that they really appreciate my reviews and that they got into collecting these statues in Bishoujo because they watched my reviews and they didn't know that these were a thing before they seen my reviews. So I figured there might be enough people who could and would donate, who wanted to, that it might make some kind of difference for me. But and I've seen everybody has a donate button. So like, apparently though, after I looked into it, like, I don't know, you kind of need to be a business, and I'm not a business. I'm a dude who collects Bishoujo statues. So I kind of decided against it, even if I had a business or whatever, even if I wanted to pretend like I was a business just to get donations. I don't think that's necessary. I'm kind of happy with things the way they are, so um, I'm going to leave that one alone. So I would appreciate. If someone was considering donating, thank you, but no, thank you. We'll just continue as we have been here, and I think the next one is She-Hulk. Maybe I should go double check what my pre-orders look like. I think She-Hulk might be next. I hope that's true because I'm excited for her. She-Hulk's going to be awesome. I'm really happy that they finally made her. I could be wrong. There could be someone else coming out before her. At any rate, whatever Bishoujo is released next, that'll be my next Bishoujo review. Leave a comment. Let me know if you think that her mask is too big, too high. I feel like it's too big, but maybe I'm the only one that thinks that. And I've kind of turned the corner on that. I think it looks fine in person. It makes a difference, but I really like the statue a lot more seeing it in person. And if you've decided you're going to take a pass on this, maybe go see it in person before you can't buy it anymore, and then decide. Because if I was a little bit on the fence at first, and if I had seen her in person, and I would have been kicking myself because she's great. So I recommend it. And thanks thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video.